This morning, a story broke that changed the shape of the 2026 World Cup. Mexico's president, Claudia Sheinbaum, stood at her daily press conference and confirmed that her country will host the Iranian national football team for the duration of the tournament. Not as a goodwill gesture, not as a symbolic act, because FIFA approached Mexico directly after the United States said it did not want Iran staying on American soil, even though Iran are scheduled to play all three of their group matches there. Let that land for a second. A qualified nation playing 3 matches inside the United States, being told by the tournament's principal host that it cannot stay in that country between those matches. Basing itself in Tijuana, Mexico, a border city just south of San Diego, and crossing into the U.S. only on game day. That is where this story has arrived on May 26, 2026, 16 days before the opening ceremony at the Azteca. And the extraordinary thing is that this is actually a resolution compared to where this story has been, and we're going to go through every stage of it today. This morning's news represents something closer to a workable arrangement than anything that's existed in the past 3 months. Iran's Federation President, Mehdi Taj, confirmed the Tijuana move on Saturday. FIFA confirmed it on Monday. Mexico said yes within hours of being asked. Iran is coming to the World Cup, but they're arriving through the back door, staying across the border and crossing in on game day. Here's the full story of how we got here, and if you want to follow every twist in this tournament as it develops, subscribe now and hit the bell. This channel covers everything that matters about 2026 every single day. Let's go back to November 29, 2025, because that's when you could first see that this was going to be unlike any World Cup participation story the sport had seen before. The 2026 World Cup draw was scheduled for December 5th at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. Every qualified nation was expected to send a delegation. FIFA had planned an elaborate ceremony, and 3 days before it happened, Iran announced it was boycotting the draw entirely. Not because they didn't want to be there, because the United States had denied visas to members of the Iranian Football Federation's delegation. Not to the players, to the officials, the administrators and football executives who would have attended the draw ceremony. Their visa applications were rejected. Iran's federation spokesman Amir Mahdi Alavi said publicly that the obstacles they faced went beyond sport. He said they had reached out to FIFA and hoped it could help. Iran boycotted the draw ceremony. Their group was determined in their absence. And just days later, in a striking reversal, the Iranian head coach, Ardashir Galanawi, arrived in Washington with a delegation for the team's seminar. FIFA had worked behind the scenes to secure their entry, but the damage to the optics had been done. This was a country whose football officials were being refused entry to the country hosting their team's World Cup matches. That was November 2025. The tournament hadn't even had its draw yet, and already Iran's participation was a story. Then came February 28, 2026, and everything changed. The United States and Israel launched military strikes on Iran. The country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was killed in the attacks. Thousands of Iranian civilians were killed or injured in the strikes and in Iran's retaliatory operations that followed. A ceasefire, described as fragile and unsteady, was eventually established, but the conflict left a wound in the relationship between Iran and the United States that no amount of sporting diplomacy could paper over quickly. Within days of the attacks, Iran's Football Federation president, Mehdi Taj, told state television directly, "What is certain is that after this attack, we cannot be expected to look forward to the World Cup with hope." Then Iran's sports minister Ahmad Donyamali went further. He said on state television words that reverberated through football for weeks. "Under no circumstances can we participate in the World Cup. Our children are not safe, and fundamentally, such conditions for participation do not exist." That statement, from a government minister, was as close to an official withdrawal declaration as any World Cup participant has made since Scotland declined their place at the 1950 tournament. No country that has qualified for the World Cup has withdrawn after doing so since that 1950 situation. FIFA was watching a live, real-time withdrawal scenario unfold for the first time in 76 years. Now here's where things get interesting, because even as the sports minister was saying no, the players themselves were saying something very different.
On March 13th, Iran's national football team released a statement on social media. It was brief, pointed, and historically significant. "No one can exclude us from the World Cup," it read. The players were not waiting for government permission. They were asserting their own identity, separate from the political situation, as footballers who had earned the right to play. It was one of the most remarkable moments in the entire build-up to this tournament. A squad of footballers in the middle of a conflict involving their country and the tournament's host nation, posting publicly that they intended to participate, regardless of what their own sports minister had said. The gap between what the government was saying and what the players were saying was right there, in the open, for the world to see. FIFA moved quickly. Infantino attended Iran's pre-tournament friendly against Costa Rica in Antalya, Turkey, on March 31st. He sat in the stands. He posted on Instagram that FIFA would continue to support the team to ensure the best possible conditions. He confirmed publicly that Iran was coming. When asked directly whether matches might be moved to Mexico, he said they would be played where they should be. Then came a sequence of events that compressed weeks of tension into a few days. Iran's federation formally submitted written demands to FIFA in May. The list was specific and documented. Visa guarantees for all players, staff, journalists, and fans without additional immigration questioning. Security guarantees at training facilities and match venues. Respectful treatment of the Iranian flag, anthem, and national symbols. Press conferences restricted to football questions only. On May 16th, FIFA Secretary-General Matthias Grafström flew to Istanbul and met personally with Iranian Federation officials. Following that meeting, Taj expressed optimism that Iran would be able to participate. It was the most positive signal that had come from the Iranian side in months. On May 21st, members of the Iranian national team camp arrived at the U.S. Embassy in Ankara, Turkey, for their visa applications. That image, Iranian footballers queuing at an American embassy to get the paperwork they needed to play in a tournament they'd qualified for, captured the absurdity and the human reality of this situation in a single photograph. And then, on Saturday, May 23rd, Taj confirmed the base camp switch. Tijuana, not Tucson. Mexico, not Arizona. Direct Iran air flights possible. The team would train in Mexico, cross the border for matches in Los Angeles and Seattle, and return. FIFA confirmed the move on Monday. Mexico's president confirmed it this morning. So where does that leave things today, May 26th? Iran is going. That is the clearest statement that can be made. The base camp is confirmed. The federation is optimistic. The players are preparing. Taj said the Tijuana arrangement includes all training facilities, a gym, a private restaurant, and everything else the team needs. The logistics, while extraordinary, are workable. Tijuana is approximately 30 kilometers south of San Diego and roughly 2 hours by road from the Los Angeles stadium where Iran's first 2 group matches will be played. But several questions remain open that matter to how this story resolves completely. The visa question is the most immediate. Iran's players applied at the U.S. Embassy in Ankara on May 21st. As of today's recording, no official confirmation has been issued that visas have been granted to the full squad, technical staff, and delegation. The athletics exemption written into the travel ban order should cover players and coaches, but the definition of what counts as necessary support roles has never been tested in quite this situation, and Iran's federation made clear they want guarantees of no additional questioning beyond the standard process. Those guarantees, in writing from the U.S. State Department, have not been publicly confirmed.
The fan question has not changed. Iran's fans, the supporters who would normally fill a section of the stadium, who would bring the flags and the noise and the identity that every national team carries with them, remain subject to travel restrictions that no exemption has resolved. There is no carve-out for fans of qualified nations in the same way there is for players. Iran's matches in Los Angeles and Seattle will be played, in all likelihood, with no Iranian fans in the stands. The people cheering for Team Melli on those nights will be members of the Iranian diaspora already living in the United States, some of whom have been in the country for decades and have complicated feelings about this tournament arriving in their adopted home. And the Group G implications are worth understanding. Iran is scheduled to face New Zealand at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles on June 15th, Belgium in Los Angeles on June 21st, and Egypt at Seattle Stadium on June 26th. They're crossing the border for each of those matches from Tijuana. The logistics are manageable, but it means Iran's preparation for each game includes a border crossing in the hours before kickoff. It means the pre-match routine is different from every other team at this tournament. It means that if any visa or travel complication emerges for any delegation member on any of those 3 days, there is no safety net, no fallback, no plan B that doesn't involve a crisis. Now let's look at this from a football perspective, because the Iran squad itself, underneath all of the noise that has surrounded their participation, is genuinely worth discussing. Team Melli is appearing in its 7th World Cup and 4th consecutive. They qualified with a 2-2 draw against Uzbekistan in March 2025, both goals scored by Mehdi Taremi. Taremi, who plays for Olympiacos, is Iran's most recognizable player internationally, a technically gifted striker who has performed consistently at club level in European football. Alireza Jahanbakhsh, who has played in the Premier League, is another of the experienced names in the squad. Iran have never advanced beyond the group stage of a World Cup. In all 6 previous appearances, the group stage has been their ceiling. But this squad, under coach Amir Galanoui, has been among the stronger teams in Asian qualifying, and Group G presents a genuinely interesting challenge. Belgium, faded from their golden generation days, but still carrying De Bruyne if he's fit, are the clear group favorites. Egypt have Mohamed Salah, expected to be fit after a hamstring concern. New Zealand, making a rare World Cup appearance, are the potential point-dropping opportunity. Iran, in normal circumstances, would approach this group with realistic ambitions of competing for 2nd or 3rd. In these circumstances, after everything their federation and players have navigated since February, simply being in those stadiums will represent something. Here's the bigger picture that this story opens up, because the Iran situation, resolved into this unusual but workable Tijuana arrangement, reveals something about how FIFA functions under pressure that deserves direct acknowledgement. FIFA's stated principle, repeated by Infantino dozens of times since February, is that sport should be outside politics. The tournament brings the world together. Every qualified nation should be there. Football transcends the conflicts that divide countries. That principle is genuine and it matters, but the Iran story also shows that principle being tested to its limit and surviving in the form of a compromise that nobody would have designed from the start. A base camp in Mexico, a border crossing on match days, visa applications at an embassy in a 3rd country, fans who can't come, a federation president who is turned away at a Canadian airport. This is what sport outside politics looks like when it's genuinely hard, not the clean, symbolic version from the promotional materials, the real version where FIFA works the phones, flies to Istanbul, approaches Mexico, confirms the Tijuana camp, and finds the path that keeps the team in the tournament, imperfect, unusual, logistically complicated, but present. Whether you think that's good enough depends on your view of what the World Cup owes its participants. But Iran will be in Los Angeles on June 15th. They will play New Zealand. The Iranian squad that posted "No one can exclude us" in March will be on that pitch. That is not nothing. In the context of everything this story has been, that is actually quite something. So here's what I want to know from you. With the Tijuana arrangement confirmed, the base camp approved, and 16 days to go, do you think Iran will complete all 3 group stage matches? And here's the football question. Given everything their players have been through in the past 3 months, do you think that adversity makes them dangerous as a team? Does it give them something extra on the pitch? Leave your answer in the comments. These are the conversations that matter. If this breakdown gave you the full picture you were looking for, hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more football fans. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're covering this tournament every single day, all the way to July 19th. This story is still developing, and as always, football never stays quiet for long. See you in the next one.